Are at war. There is a war against autistic joy.
So April is Autism Awareness and Autism Acceptance Month. And I want to make videos about that. But I haven't known where I can put my foot in, if that makes any sense. My son is autistic, and through studying autism and how to help him with navigating the world with autism, I have discovered that it's probably not just his father that gave it to him. I don't have an official diagnosis, but one of the things that makes it hard for me to talk about, though, is that we don't struggle with it very often. He doesn't have meltdowns here very much of the time, and the few times where we have any kind of a butting of heads, it's because I need to explain to him how society is going to expect him to behave. But I personally do not care when he wants to do things like bounce back and forth between these two beanbags 100 times while he's talking to me. I don't care. In fact, that's why I leave the beanbags there. Because when I do that, he bounces back and forth between the beanbags 100, 200 times as he's excitedly telling you stories about stuff, or as he's excitedly playing games with his stuffed animals. Like, it doesn't bother. And I didn't notice that he was doing vocal stems or making unusual noises because he was singing. And I sing all the time at random intervals. Like, generally when I'm feeling sort of peaceful, or when I'm feeling really, really anxious and need to be peaceful. In fact, really anytime that I'm feeling like it's safe to sing. Like, it won't make things significantly worse if I sing. Otherwise, I'll just sort of daydream. And I don't think of it as maladaptive. I'm sorry. Is it really maladaptive if your daydream is keeping you from doing something harmful? I would think that maladaptive would be a harmful type of daydreaming, wouldn't it? And then let's talk about fidgets. Let's talk about fidgets here. Sorry. Obviously, I haven't put the fidget shelf back together since last night, but I would say at least half of these fidgets were not gotten specifically for him. Just looking at these shashibos, only these two were purchased specifically for him. In case you're wondering, yes, this is two. There's two SpongeBob ones. All the rest of these were purchased for me. Most of them were purchased a couple of years ago because I don't have money now. But, most of the fidgets in my house are things that I have played with or enjoyed playing with my whole life. And let me tell you this, my son never had a full-blown meltdown in his entire life until he went into foster care. Because I would see the signs that people are always ignoring in me, and I would move to help him calm down, right away. As soon as I could see that he was getting distressed, as soon as I could see that he was getting overwhelmed, as soon as I could see that something was scaring him or bothering him, I would move to help him figure out how to calm down. And I gotta tell you, he had far more of those moments where he needed help with that when we were living with his dad, because the environment was chaotic, our relationship was chaotic, and his father had such a mixed up schedule for a long time that even his sleep schedule was becoming chaotic. And then let's talk about that. I don't in any way think that my son has so few meltdowns because I'm a perfect parent. I am so not. Or because he is higher functioning than so many other kids. I think it's because he has a functional language. So many other kids with autism do not. And a large portion of parenting them is finding out how to make a functional language so that they can tell you what they're feeling in a way that you can understand. Heck, even one of the biggest problems that we have had consistently with my son comes from him not having come equipped with a functional language surrounding emotions. I mean, I started teaching him about emotions like as soon as he had a functional language. And there's this wonderful set of books called The Little Spot of Feelings or The Little Spot of Emotions. They have two sets of those, and they give you a language and a way to deal with emotions that have gotten too big and too out of hand. They're actually written for autistic kids. And now that my son has the language to deal with some of those emotions, he's doing a lot better job. I don't know what's going to happen when he becomes a teenager, because teenage years are the years where kids tend to not want to communicate even when they have functional language. But from my observation, that is one of the biggest problems that faces kids with higher support needs, those labels, is that they don't have as much functional language around the things that they need. That's the biggest problem that I have seen. That, and that so many people seem to think that the way to deal with sensory issues is to overexpose the child to those same things. So of course that's going to create a meltdown. If you're overwhelmed, what else are you going to do? But I actually started this video because of the autistic joy thing. The way that so many people, if your child is autistic and you're showing their meltdowns, a lot of people don't want to criticize you for that, or at least they'll be like, "Why? How dare you show that vulnerable moment?" But they won't demand that you show the other side. But if you show your child being joyful and having an accomplishment, then you'll get bombarded with people talking about how you need to stop acting like that's the only experience and blah blah blah. Like, my very favorite thing to do as a parent is to figure out ways to get my son giggling. Like, he has the best laugh. And there are like kitten videos on this app where he will start giggling, or fart jokes. I never liked fart jokes before he came along, but now I'm kind of okay. I'm kind of partial to him. When he was still an infant and getting up into toddler years, there were all kinds of word things that would get him giggling. At one point, the sound of bees, would just get him giggling up a storm. So I would bend down over him and I would say, "Mr. Bombastic." And he would just giggle for 10 minutes after I said. One of my favorite things that is specific to sensory issues is the way that he can hear, all of the different notes that are in a vacuum cleaner, for instance. It can be overwhelming, but when you stop and you sit with him and you let him experience all of that sound, the autistic joy. But then some people are really offended by the way that joy expresses itself. That's one of the other things too. Like when an autistic kid is flapping their hand excitedly because they're just so happy, people will be like, "What's wrong with him?" And you're like, "He's happy." What's wrong with that? If I had a penny for every time my child has been excitedly trying to tell a story to somebody and they have decided he was trying to attack them and pulled their child away from him or something, I wouldn't actually be struggling with money right now. Heck, if I had a nickel for every time someone has criticized me for drilling my child when we're playing one of our favorite games, which is me asking him math questions and him spinning around and figuring out the answer. Again, if I had a nickel for every time, wouldn't be struggling financially at all.